And then we shall also hear from Mr. Mwarua of Kilifi, Mariakani. And finally, we shall also listen to Mr. Michael Mangeli of Mavoko Water Company. After that, we shall get into a small plenary or discussion so that we mint as much as possible what are these good practices and experiences that are there being practiced in reduction of non-revenue water. So without taking more time, I would like to welcome on this podium Ms. Engineer James Nganga Nakuru, Urban Water Service Provider. Please, Engineer. Let's give him 1 minute. I think they are loading his presentation. Okay, you can stand. Okay, you can use this. Will you be comfortable with the 10 minutes, engineer? Okay, 10 minutes, yes.
Good morning. Yes, I've been told the Water Fund CEO is with us this morning. We also have the Chair Board of Directors from Kenya Water Institute. Yeah? Okay. And also the sponsors of this event and all in Father's case. Good morning. Yes, I think we are waiting still for the presentation to be projected. To the first slide. Okay. I am Leonard Mutai from Nakuru Water. Our managing director didn't manage to come here to be with us because of other engagements. But he sent us with one of my guys from the GIS, Mr. Erastus. Maybe you can stand to be seen. All right, thank you. So my presentation actually is not long. It will be very short, based on actually what we've been doing with JICA for the last 5 years. That is our offices in Nakuru. Maybe for those who have managed to come, we have managed to secure a place where we can call our offices, and that is the place. Next slide, please. All right. Nakuru jurisdiction actually is subdivided into 5 zones. We have, this is in blue, that is the boundaries. And our coverage currently is at 93% based on the WASREP impact report. And actually we are serving around 500,000 consumers. And our service area is what we are seeing there. Next, please. Okay, looking at the non-revenue water for the last 10 years, the current non-revenue water for the national level is at 47%. That is where we were 10 years ago, 2011. And currently we have managed to travel all that journey and we are at 30%. a reduction actually of 17%. And I can say it has not been easy for us to be there. There has been so many activities involved for us to travel all the way. Actually, non-revenue water reducing non-revenue water 1% at times may not be so easy, but it requires a lot of intervention, teamwork, and commitment from all the staff. So looking at our production, whereby we are at around 12 million cubic meters a year, that actually tells us that it is really a very hard task when it comes to reducing even 1%. But looking at when we started with Chaika, we were at around 35%. Currently we are at 30%, meaning that the involvement from Chaika team actually has really helped us to actually reduce non-revenue water to those levels. But still, we still have a very long way actually to bring it down to acceptable levels of less than 25%, and that is actually where we are and what we are working for at the moment. Next slide, please. All right, so I think Mori, when he was doing the presentation yesterday, he also projected something of this sort, a graphical representation of actually so many KPIs indicators on supplied volume, on non-revenue water volume, the average tariff, on NRW, bill volume, billing, and also potential revenue loss. But I wanted actually to see, for us to see the graph on non-revenue water, how it has been coming down over the few years. You could see actually how it is behaving, meaning that the trend is actually going down, which is also a good indicator. Actually, despite the challenges which we had during the COVID period, but we are happy to see that still we managed actually to bring the non-revenue water levels down despite all the challenges which were there. So actually this is the model which was developed by the Chaika, and actually it's something which we are using at the moment to actually access, to actually monitor our progress in non-revenue water. Next slide, please. This is also another kind of analysis which was done, and our accounts, or the number of consumers we have managed to break them into so many categories. We have those who consume over 300 cubic meters a month. We have those who consume between 100 and 300, those who consume between 55 and 100. So you could see that we were doing a lot of estimates, and without you actually doing a lot of analysis on billing, it's very hard actually to know where you are in terms of estimation. But when you come up with such an analysis, you would be able to see how many consumers are being maybe built on estimate in a certain duration of time. So when you manage to do that, you will be able actually to know where the problem is. If it's actually checking on the meters, some of the meters maybe they are not working, stuck, and then you'll be able to see and also focus on those meters if actually they require replacement. And you will actually see maybe a good progress later after doing the replacement. So in most cases, maybe some of the organization may be looking at non-revenue water as only being a component of physical loss. But actually, we have commercial aspect, which is playing a very major role when it comes to non-revenue water contribution, something which is actually required for us we are required actually to focus on, because we have actually dealt so much on the leakages on the past, and then also disregarding the commercial aspect, something which we actually need to do. So this is what we did over the time when we started on billing analysis, and we have seen actually a good progress in terms of bringing down the non-revenue water. So next slide, please. And maybe looking on some of the activities which we have been doing for a period of time, we have been actually focusing so much on billing analysis. And based on the billing analysis we have managed to do, we have managed to replace water balance. Because without being able to separate between the physical losses and the commercial losses, it's very hard actually for you to be able to separate in the water balance how do you quantify the physical losses and the commercial losses. So the only way you can actually do this is by carrying out minimum night flow measurement, something which we have been doing. We have done it in 7 DMAs, and we have seen that this exercise actually is yielding good fruits from our end. We have also had a progressive replacement of the dilapidated network. Our network is, in some areas, is very aged, but we have actually been trying to see how we can replace this network with the modern materials like the HDPE. And with that also, we are seeing the progress being so good. And also on GIS, we are looking on how we can actually do the mapping and see where we still have got these problematic areas of our network. We have been also doing calibration of production meters, because without actually knowing the exact amount of water you are producing from the production, it's very hard for you to actually get to know the actual non-revenue water. So what we normally do 2 times in a year is to actually focus on also calibrating the production meters to see what is actually what they are giving us. Is it the actual, or is it actually misleading us? So we normally use the ultrasonic flow meters, which I know quite a number of organizations actually have this equipment. We have also been applying our GIS application in non-revenue water reduction. That is also a new field whereby we have seen that it's helping the sector in also reducing the non-revenue water. So next slide, please. All right, so that is just a report template for the production calibration. Next, please. This is also one of the areas when it comes to GIS application, mapping of past and leaks. Every morning we have provided our artisans with the phones. So what they do is when they come across a leakage or a burst or anything, they actually report this, they feed this on their phones, and then after maybe a month, the GIS analyst can be able to actually do the analysis and check on the system. Maybe in a year's time, how many leakages have actually been repaired in a certain line. That one can actually tell you that this line is problematic and you need to do something maybe to do the replacement. So that is also one area of application of the GIS. Next, please. Also on hydraulic analysis, water balancing in water stress areas, diagnose causes and inform better planning. We also have on suitable pump selection optimization to reduce energy cost. This one also currently, these are some of the application which is being done by the GIS to see which pumps are mostly suitable so that you don't incur a lot of costs when it comes to production. And later on you'll realize that when you use the right pumps, you'll be able to you'll be able to save on cost recovery actually. That is where we are. So, and when you save on cost recovery, those actually savings, you could be able to use them on maybe in activities which touches on the non-revenue water. So actually this is where we have been focusing on. Thank you. Next, please. Also on maintaining a special address for customer accounts whereby every premise has to be captured in our system and also with the accounts so that we'll be able to trace. If an account was disconnected some years back, we'll be able to know. And if another account is going to be open, we'll be able also to check and to see why is this property having two accounts and yet there was a meter before. Those and also can help us to address issues to do with illegal connection and meter bypasses. So GIS also has been of great help in that area. Next, please. So we still have got challenges in our system. One of them is illegal water praxis. This is a vice which has greatly affected non-revenue water reduction targets due to frequent change of tactics being employed to evade billing charges. I know this is something which is actually happening in most of the WSPs, whereby the customers tend to run away from the bills. And it's one way, it's one of the major challenges in the water sector. We also have vandalism of water infrastructure, manholes, bulk water meters, and water fittings. Also intermittent water supply. We can see that the population is growing, and without proper projection on where to get water in the coming years, this is the problem. That is why we are also doing rationing in our system to see how we can distribute water evenly to our consumers. And the another issue which I had also mentioned is whole dilapidated network, which is prone to fail frequently, resulting in heavy water loss. Another challenge is also inadequate funding to upscale upgrading of edge network. Next, please. And in conclusion, I can say non-revenue water is a cross-cutting issue and therefore requires total commitment from everyone within an organization. Also, reduction of non-revenue water requires an integrated approach, addressing all aspects simultaneously. It also requires commitment to have all meters read without catalog cases, and therefore we must know our customers, which are our customers. And non-revenue water requires also, reduction requires ownership at individual level and dedication from everyone. Reduction of NRW can be achieved with minimum financial resources. You don't have to actually look for large amount of money for actually to reduce non-revenue water, but still you can use the resources you have within so that you can reduce non-revenue water. Thank you very much for your attention.
Night flow measurement, calibration of production meters, but they also have experiences, and I like him saying commitment and having all meters read. And then he also said part of the experience is we need to look at it from the individual commitment. So our customers should also be committed so that it is not just the WSP, but also the customers are also involved. Thank you so much for that sharing. Next, we would like to call upon the next presenter, Mr. Mwarua of Kilifi Mariakani Water Service Provider. Is he around? I was told he was around. And then after that, we shall have. What?
The presenter should bring their presentation of the registration.
Okay. I'm being reminded by the Secretariat that all the presentations, the presenters, please submit your presentations to the Secretariat so that they can be able to upload so that when your time comes, it makes it easier. So those who are to present today, please submit your presentations. After Mr. Mwarua of Kilifi, we shall give the chance to Mr. Michael Mangeli of Mavoko Water Service Provider, if he's in the floor, if he's in the room. So, welcome. Can we give you 10 minutes?
Yeah, I think it's in order.
It's in order.
Yeah.
Okay, welcome.
Okay, members, good morning. My name's Gona Mwembe. Engineer Mwarua, who is the managing director for Kilifi Mariakani Water and Sewerage Company, is on the way coming, but I'll do the presentation on his behalf. Okay, let's go to the next slide. We have started by trying to inform members how this water company was formed. And therefore, as you can see from this slide, is that Mariakani Water and Sewerage Company is an autonomous government agency that was incorporated in 2005 under the Water Act 2002 and wholly owned by the County Council of Kilifi and Mariakani and the County Council of Kilifi then, okay. In line with the Constitution of Kenya 2010, the provision of water and sanitation services is a devolved function, as you are aware, since 2013. And Kimawasco is now wholly owned by the county government of Kilifi by shares. Pre-Water Act 2016, Kimawasco used to operate under service provision agreement with Coast Water Services Board. But under the Water Act 2016, Kimawasco is now required to apply for operating license from Water Services Regulatory Board. Let's go to the next slide, please. We, as a company, we have our mandate, we have our vision and mission. So we envisage to be efficient and economical provision of water and sanitation services authorized by license in Kilifi County. That is our mandate. And our vision is to be a world-class water and sanitation services provider. Our mission is to effectively provide affordable, reliable, and sustainable quality water and sanitation services in an innovative manner to residents of Ganze, Rabai, Kaloleni, Kilifi North, Kilifi South, parts of Magarini, and Malindi sub-counties. Unlike to those other water companies who mostly are concentrated within towns, our company cuts across the towns and also the vast parts of Kilifi County. If I talk about the vast parts of Kilifi County, I'm referring to those areas, the far-flung areas, the remote areas of Magarini, Ganze, Rabai, all those sorts of areas. If we go to this other slide, as it has already been shown from those the other presenter, this is a tool that was introduced to us by JICA just to help reduce our non-revenues which happened to be like a monster in the house by then. And before even introduction of this tool to our system, we were trying to work out how we can actually reduce our non-revenue water haphazardly. This means we could not have a clear way of how we wanted to reduce our non-revenue, because we acted like we were using different ways which sometimes didn't work. But after the introduction of this tool, you can see from this presentation, we used to be performing very badly in terms of non-revenue water from the years 2016, 2017, whereby we were recording almost 60% of non-revenue. But immediately after introduction of this tool, you can see from this presentation, there was immediate a downtrend in terms of the non-revenue performance. So from the year 2016-2017, whereby we recorded around a percentage of around 60% in non-revenue, it started going down to 50. And as at now, we are very happily, we can report that we have even gone down to slightly below 40%, which I can say it is a very good improvement. But there is this circle here that surrounds some other items inside here. You can see from the legend, there are items that are inside here. But I just want to talk about this area that has been cycled. For you to be able to manage your non-revenue, you should be in a position to, first of all, handle the issues of commercial losses, be in a position also to handle the issues of physical losses. And once that is achieved, then we expect to have a reduced non-revenue ratio. We expect to have increased billing consumption, and our supply sometimes can be influenced by physical losses. In a situation whereby we record high physical losses, we may say that our production or our supply volumes are high, but again, if you look at your performances in terms of non-revenue, then you see that your non-revenues are very high. So if you are in a position to manage physical losses, manage the issues of pressures within the systems, then basically the cycled part here indicates how you expect the performance to be. If you can look at the first arrow, the black one, indicates where the supply production is, where the production is. And again, looking at the middle arrow, it shows you the trend of how the non-revenue ratio has been. And down here is bill consumption. So if you can manage non-revenue, then it means you expect to have an increased bill consumption, and probably this is now going to help this institution or organization run sustainable. As you can see, no, before this slide, just back. As you can see around this place here, we have tried to reduce as much as we could the potential revenue loss. And even looking at the non-revenues, you can see at this particular point, we have gone down. We used to bill around 35 million. That I'm referring to the years between 2016 and 2017. But at the moment, we are billing above 45 million a month, which again is a very is a good performance to our side. It's a very good improvement. The next slide. Now, the following are the non-revenue activities since 2020 to 2021. So some of these things that we did to enable us reach where we are today are enhancement of the non-revenue unit. In this unit, we deployed the relevant staff to the unit. As I have said, we used to work haphazardly to counter non-revenue. But as we were learning from other WSPs and as we were getting consultancy, help from other stakeholders, we found that it was very important to have a unit that can be dedicated to this fight. And therefore, that is the time we had to form the unit of several members that are representing all those stations that we are covering. Then we also had to build capacity through training and benchmarking on this stuff. Then, after doing this, we also conducted sensitization to both community and staff, just to inform them the importance of their involvement in this fight. Because this fight without the community, without the staff being onboarded on this track, then I think there will be a challenge. So we thought it's important to do sensitization to both staff and the community, just to be part in this fight. Also, we planned the planning and budgeting of the non-revenue activity, which is in the non-revenue strategic plan. It is in place. Establishment and operationalization of the GIS office. We didn't have a GIS officer by up to around 2020. We were still operating without a GIS officer. And after a lot of searching for a suitable person in the year 2021, we were able to have a GIS officer. So we have a full-fledged GIS office. And as at now, we have mapped all the customer meters. We have mapped all the customer meters, and this has really helped us a lot, because initially we could not know exactly whether these accounts that were read by the meter readers were all captured or not. But after at least engaging this GIS officer, we were able to move around all those connections. And we reported, in fact, an increment of those accounts in regard to those other connections that had not yet been captured in our systems. We identified that there were some connections that had not been captured, and therefore it helped us covering up on those connections. Then there's the issue of monthly non-revenue monitoring through supply volumes, billing, and the ratios. Next slide. Yeah, then abnormal flow monitoring for quick detection of burst leaks and illegal water usage. We were doing this one using the listening sticks that had been provided to us by JICA, and it has really helped us a lot in terms of identifying illegal connection, identifying underground leakages. And then we have also put more focus on management of large consumers. We came to realize that if we could just concentrate, I know that those small consumers or small accounts, small users who also need or have the right to access water. But again, as a company, for it to be sustainable, sometimes you need to look more into the large consumers that can easily lift or can easily improve your billing. So we looked down into those large consumers, and we found that, in fact, we were supplying just way below their demands. And therefore, we had to come up with some strategies to ensure that at least we supply adequate water to them, so that at least can help us improve our billing. And this has really worked. It has really worked, because there are a number of large consumers that we did more efforts to ensure that at least they get more than what they need, or they get what they need, and they have helped us in improving our billing. There is the preventive measures at the installation of service connection. As an entity, we have made it clear that all the new connections, their meters have to be installed at the offtake. because in the previous years, we were just doing connections without knowing the risk that we have in terms of installing these customer meters at their premise. And it has led to losses of water through illegal connection. And even if we disconnect these consumers, still the connection point is within their premise, and therefore they still have that privilege to go further and do still and even do illegal connections on it. So moving forward, as a way of ensuring that we have covered in terms of providing an opportunity for a customer to steal, we install all the meters at the off-take, or 1 to 3 meters before the boundary of that customer. Then there's the reduction of physical losses through scheduled patrols, scouting for illegal connections and quality repairs. We had set a day within a week, that was Wednesday. After looking at our stations, we found that we were losing a lot of water. The contribution in terms of non-revenue volume for the whole company was only majorly contributed by 2 stations, which was Mtwapa and Kilifi. So we decided to allocate a day, which was Wednesday, to ensure that we scout for illegal connections, we do patrols, we do every activity that is commercial to ensure that at least we were reducing the non-revenue in terms of commercial losses. Because on our side, the big contribution to this non-revenue is commercial losses. Then the use of modern technology. Before that, use of modern technology equipment, we have the Kobo Collect and the meter reading app, which has been also of great importance. With the GIS coming on board, we are using the Kobo Collect and the meter reading system to read the meters in the field there. And it has really helped us a lot, because in the past days, we were just reading, the meter readers just were working without any supervision in terms of a system that can probably make them so effective in what they're doing. So with that one, we had provided a window of the meter readers to not giving us the correct data. We have had instances whereby a meter reader just goes, sits somewhere, puts data, and he assumes that is the correct consumption of readings of that meter. So once we engaged the GIS officer on board, and after also bringing on board these other apps, we have seen the efficiency of meter reading has gone up. And again, this system guides the meter readers where the meters are. It is integrated in a way that the meter reader, not necessarily that must be very conversant to that place is doing meter reading. We can engage anyone to read at any time, because it gives direction, it has all the information necessary to guide the meter reader reach at the location of that meter. There's a presentation, there's a slide ahead there which shows how that has been integrated. Then the pressure management, we have been also doing night minimum flows tests for Kilifi town. Then also there's the rehabilitation and overhaul of dilapidated sections. We inherited a system from the ministry, and this system has been there for quite a long time. And the number of pipelines are really so aged that there are a reason why also we are losing a lot of water for the physical losses. So we have marked a number of these pipelines, and we have been always doing overall replacement per the plan that we always have. Now, there's this other analysis, the reduction of frequency estimating bill consumption over the years. As I have stated earlier, you can see from this presentation, from the year 2017 coming onwards, I don't know whether it's so clear because I don't know whether it's clear. But again, looking at it, we have categorized the customers in terms of their consumption, and you can see from this table, there is the category 1, that is consumption above 300 cubic meters a month. Category 2 is 101 to 300 cubic meters a month, and category 3 up to category 6. Now, looking at the columns, there is the first column that talks about no estimation. Column 2, 1 or 2 estimations. Column 3, and the total. So looking at the numbers of customers from 2017 coming onwards, you can see we have been improving. And this improvement has been it has been contributed by the fact that we got assistance from JICA. We got assistance in terms of the tools and every kind of skill technology that was needed for us to handle the commercial losses. Not to forget the physical losses. They are there, but its significance is a bit low. So you can see the improvement from 9,320 connections to around 17,000 connection, which is around 58% compared to the total number of accounts that we had up to around 2020, 2021 there. Next slide. So basically, maybe take me back to the previous slide. So this presentation shows the improvement over the 3 years. The reason why I'm doing this, I wanted to show you the improvement over the 3 years that we have been engaging with the JICA experts. Okay, the next slide. So as an entity, we also have some challenges that are taking us back in regard to these fights, and we have stated them here. The dilapidated infrastructure. We still have a number of pipelines in the system that are really aged, need overhaul replacement, or need a lot of investment for it to be really working in good condition. Then inadequate funds. Then there's the issue of intermittent water supply. As a company, unlike those other WSPs from the upcountry, Kilifi Mariakani Water and Storage Company gets its water from 2 sources, Baricho and Mzima, and on rationing. So this issue of rationing has really affected us a lot, because you can imagine as an entity, we get, let's say, 3 days, we get supply 3 days a week. So making sure that there's equitable distribution and there's fairness in distribution, then you can imagine 3 days making sure that everyone gets water. It's very challenging. So intermittent water supply has been a really thorn on the flesh to our organization in terms of water production. Then lack of modern tools and equipment, inadequate technologies, but we are now doing well because there are a lot of technologies coming on. Water theft and vandalism. This is a thing that is common. As I have said, we not only cover the town areas, but also the remote areas. And these are the areas where we experience a lot of vandalism. Water theft is mostly within the slums, the towns, settlement areas, because that is where there are a lot of activities. So in our organization, we are losing a lot of water in terms of water theft in Kilifi and Kilifi and Mtwapa. But there are activities that are going on, at least to ensure that we cover up on this. As I've stated earlier, scouting of legal connection, and that day that has been set to move around looking for those long cutoffs, just checking the status of those long cutoffs and ensuring that disconnected connections that have been staying for over around 6 months are also disconnected at the offtake. So ongoing plans, there are some improvements in terms of reticulation systems, which is ongoing in Mtwapa and Kilifi. In Kilifi, we are trying to improve the reticulation within an area called Mtani. And in that area, we are doing an overhaul replacement of that system because most of these pipelines pass through private premises. And therefore, we are doing an overhaul replacement to ensure that at least all the lines are in safe places and manageable, and which can help us easy manage them. So we have a DMA that we are doing in Kilifi, as I have said, in Mtani, and in Mtwapa we are also doing one at a place called Kaswarina. Development of operationals DMAs, this is already ongoing. We have areas in the two areas. We are mentioning Kilifi and Mariakani and Mtwapa here because these are the key stations. Their contribution to the non-revenue is so large that we have to put priority before going to those other remote stations. Improvement of the meter reading system. Yeah, improvement of the meter reading. As I have earlier stated, when we onboarded the GIS officer, we also integrated the Kobo Collect app and the meter reading app. So we are now using an app for meter reading, which has really improved our efficiency in terms of meter reading. And we have also seen an improvement in billing because of this integration, which is really a step ahead in regard to billing on our side. Then we have also been doing minimum night flows measurements and other leak detection techniques. And there's also a training ongoing. We did a minimum night flow test most recently in Mnarani, but it didn't work because the pressures that were in the systems are very high, because here you are required to close almost all lines, and then you remain with one for a time, so that you test the pressures, the flows. But the pipeline system was not able to withstand, and some of these pipelines were just bursting. So, but there's one that we are also planning to do within the town there. We are trying to enhance all the systems so that at least the issues of air valves, airlock cannot be a reason to stop us progressing with this testing. Okay, this is a map showing the zones, the DMAs that have been created in Mtwapa and Kilifi. So in Mtwapa we have 7 DMAs, and in Kilifi we have 8 DMAs. I want to believe everyone knows the importance of having these DMAs, because we are trying to go down deeper to see where do we lose this water. Which area do we lose this area? Okay. Which area do we lose this? these volumes of water. So this shows you how the GIS system has been integrated with the other apps that are enabling us to have an efficient meter reading. Yeah. So let's go to the next slide. Okay, thank you.
Your experience from Kilifi. I think he has actually indicated that they have made tremendous improvement in non-revenue water. Initially at 60, but they have now managed to get to 40. Now, this also makes it a challenge. When we say overall in the country we are 47%, and now I'm seeing the issue of average not giving us the correct picture. It's like somebody says that I have dug a hole which is 10 meters deep, then you say the average is 5, and then you try to get into the hole that you might stop at 5, but you just go deep up until you reach 10. So in that case, the average is not now giving us the very correct picture, because we are seeing very good experiences. Thank you. Also, we heard from Nakuru. They have also done up to 30%. Now, I would like us to get into a plenary session, and I want to call upon Madam Margaret, if she's in the room, to come forward. The presenter that has just won a member, you would like to come over, please? Or you want the CEO? Is the CEO around? But for the time being, you can sit in for him. So that if there are any clarifications, welcome, madam. If there are any clarifications, you can make the clarifications before the CEO comes, please. Now, we were supposed to have Mr. Michael Mangeli. I'm told because of some commitments, he may not be with us at this moment. So perhaps whatever he has to share with us, he can still share to the Secretariat and will form part of the proceedings of this symposium. Now, we want to take a very short time. The main message here is, what are the good practices that this symposium will be very proud of to carry home? The presenters, starting from yesterday's, are seated in front of us here. But I would like to give Margaret, now that you presented yesterday, can you just take around 2 minutes to recap quickly the main points of your presentation so that the audience gets updated. Please, Margaret.
Okay, thank you so much. We are here looking at the good practices that we are going to take away from this symposium. And one of the issues is, first, we accept that our high non-revenue levels needs to be taken care of. And the good thing is we have solutions if you are going to embrace the new technologies that are available. One, in the terms of metering, if we meter our customers using the accurate meters, we are going to reduce the commercial losses, part of the non-revenue water. The other aspect is through the fittings that we are using, and the pipes and the fittings. If you use the standard procurement methods using the specifications that are given for the pipes and fittings that we are using. Though they might be expensive, they are also going to be part of non-revenue reduction. And we are happy in this symposium. There are some suppliers, manufacturers of pipes who are with us. And this is a good collaboration that we need to embrace. The third one is also, as the last presenter has said, it takes a lot of work to do non-revenue management, especially in the field where you are creating the DMAs, where you have to do the meter calibrations, where we have to do the night flows for night measurements. If there is that enabling environment, especially for the utilities to support the non-revenue unit in all these aspects, it is also going a long way in reducing the non-revenue. The other thing is about the financing of the WSPs, because most of these infrastructures are expensive, like the smart meters are very expensive for an ordinary water utility to procure. And there is need of that commercial financing from our local banks, and we are happy that they have been part of this symposium, because it is opening doors for the water utilities to negotiate and have a facility that they can get the meters, especially for the high consumers, maybe who are usually the 20% of the ones who create revenue in our company. So that one is a positive direction that we are taking, and I'm happy that after this symposium, there will be a way the WSPs can continue negotiating with the banks to lead finances for the same. So this is a beginning for me of a new era in reduction of non-revenue, because all of us, the educationists, the researchers, the manufacturers, the service providers, we are talking in one voice. And when we are all working together for a common good, we are going to see the levels of non-revenue coming down. And I hope that after this symposium, there will be a way forward on this. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Margaret, for the recap. I want to recognize our guests that have joined us, the CEO, Kevi, the Delegation Secretary, and other directors that have joined us. Please feel welcome to this session. Now, I want to open for any questions, but the questions should target the best practices that we have had from our presenters. The best practices that this symposium is carrying home. If there's an area you need clarification from the presenters, this is now your time. I'll take some 3 questions, because the session maybe should last not more than 10 minutes. So I welcome questions to the presenters on the good practices and their experiences in reduction of non-revenue water. Yes, I can see a hand there. Any other hand? Okay, let's start with Madam. Yes.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Dorothy Makoha. I'm the Senior Enforcement Officer from Eldoret Water and Sanitation Company. I just want to appreciate the presentations that have been done, and we're really getting a lot. And from my side, I think we have everything. We have all the solutions with us, and it's just a matter of now hitting the road and running the talk. I just wanted some clarification from, I think from the Nakuru Water and also from Kilifi. The first one is from Kilifi. You mentioned about some of the measures that you had taken, and including the preventive measures, that is the installation of service meters on the off-take. So there are some challenges there. And I wanted just to get from your side or from your end what you are doing, especially in terms of the security of these service meters, because it is also a practice that we have adopted at Eldowas, that is Eldoret Water, of the relocation of meters, that is the service meters, to 1 meter from the service line. But then you find that the crafty nature of the customers, they will always look for a way of getting water before the meters. And also the theft of the same meters. And it is something that has been so rampant. So I don't know in your case if that is what you're experiencing, and if so, what are you doing in terms of preventing the theft of those meters? And on the side of Nakuru Water, I think also that is the project that you are undertaking with JICA, that is also what you're doing. And from the presentation that we had yesterday from Maurice, is like after the piloting of these projects, sometimes it is a challenge now to extend to other areas so that we escalate, like from what we have done, and then we escalate so that we do it almost, we cover all the areas or the area of our jurisdiction in terms of water supply. So I don't know from your end how far or how much have you covered for you to attain that level of non-revenue, because I've seen that you have really made a big stride, because reduction of non-revenue even by 1% is a big deal. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you so much for those 2 questions or areas for clarification. Before I give, because we have a very short session, any other questions, so that when they answer, I'll also ask them to give us our key carry-home messages. Yes, there's a question, yes.
Thank you. I'm Fred Kioko from National Bank. First is to appreciate the insights and presentations that have been given yesterday and today about the gains made in the sector and the approaches to curbing non-revenue water, but also I think the message here is looking forward to enhanced service delivery. I had comments about longer hours of water provision, more provision days, and also the issues around how to curb non-revenue water issues. I think mine is to ask whether reaching out to the water companies, I would recommend, could you consider adopting some of us private sector players in what I would call an in your shoes program. You see, as outsiders, we want to partner and walk along the journey of improving and achieving this last mile to SDG 6. Would want to maybe ask that you could kindly allow us to come to your companies and have us sit in there as to experience, let's say for a week. Let us say the credit officer of the bank sitting in the non-revenue department for a week, going out to the field, and therefore understanding the challenges, and when we then structure financial solutions, we're doing it from a point of knowledge and partnership. So would the sector be willing, WSP is willing, to take us up on that In Your Shoes program? And likewise, we would want to invite the water company people to come and sit with us for a week, hear what our officers ask for, experience what we go through when we do collections. And we think that can help even create new avenues of improving financial access, improving the understanding of the financial sector and the water sector. Thank you.
Thank you so much. for that very important concern about partnering with the non-revenue water units of our WSPs. Our panelists will respond to that. Can we say that there are no more questions so that our presenters can respond to those questions? I think 3 questions have been brought on to our table. One is on the security of meters. Another one is how wide have you covered based on what you are being reported as non-revenue water reduction in your various water service providers. And then the issue of willingness or possibility of sitting with the banks or bank sitting with your non-revenue water units to discuss and explore opportunities of partnering to drive this agenda forward. Now the floor is yours. You can answer the questions, and as you answer the questions, as you conclude, I want you to give your most impactful best practice that you think this conference should carry home. The most impactful good practice or experience that this symposium should carry home. So welcome. Let's start with Engineer Nganga. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. I wanted to respond to a question from Lady Makwa from Eldoret regarding the upscaling of non-revenue water activities after the Cheka project coming to an end this month. For us as Nakuru Water, we have seen the progress we have made in the last 5 years, and we have seen a reduction of non-revenue water from 35% to currently 30%. And we intend actually to see on the revenue, which we are managed to generate from the 5% savings we are getting, so that we can actually use the revenues from these savings to actually do the upscaling of the non-revenue water projects. And even if any donor or any partner come to support us along the way, actually we'll be able to use the resources from our side to actually fund the non-revenue water projects. And regarding also on the good practices where in which maybe the participants, I would like to encourage them to carry them home. One of the most compelling actually kind of practice which I think is going to work, and it's actually does not require a lot of resources to apply, is the peeling analysis concept, which we actually borrowed from Cheka. If you could actually do the peeling analysis on monthly basis to see on where you are in terms of your peeling and also metering, doing the replacement, you will actually be able to go a very long way in reduction of non-revenue water. And also adopting the DMA concept. This is a concept which is actually working, whereby you can actually isolate an area of around 500 connections, knowing actually the amount of water getting into that particular DMA. We have in our case whereby the artisans read the meters in the morning, and also the following morning also they read the meters. So they actually know on average the supplied volume to a certain DMA, how much is being consumed. So that if there is an hike in terms of supplied volume to a certain DMA, you'd be able to actually notice and get to know where the issue is. It could be a past or a leakage which has started coming up. So the DMA concept also is a very important component to actually learn. And also having toolbox meetings or and meetings within your institution to actually discuss on the progress, daily progress, to see how you are progressing in terms of non-revenue water reduction is very important. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Engineer Nganga. Yeah. Next.
Thank you very much. I think the question that I got from that lady coming from Eldoret was about the security of meters and how we have maybe overcome this challenge. I want to tell you, first of all, security of the meter. I don't know how it is done in your entities, but security of that meter, the customer meter, is a responsibility of the customer himself. Whether it is within his premise or it is at the off-take, it is a responsibility of the customer. How? For us, we have designed some chambers, small chambers, so that the meter can be protected within that chamber, which is lockable. But again, the issue of theft, meter theft, I think it's a thing that has been experienced not only here in the coast, but I think in other areas, as you have stated. But we came to realize that these people who steal these meters were not interested in these meters, but they were interested in the metallic components which are in these meters. And therefore, we now decided to devise a way of how we can discourage this vice. And in our organization, we are not allowing metallic meters. All what we have are those plastic meters. And then we also don't encourage installation of any metallic fitting within that meter. So if it's a new connection, you want to install it at the off-take, we charge, or we tell the customer that first of all he'll pay for the chamber. We construct that small chamber which is lockable. Then for the quotation, we give him a quotation that has all is constituted of plastic materials like the PPR valves. All bends are plastic. So when we started using this method, we have not seen this kind of meter theft as we have experienced in the last years. It has drastically reduced. In those areas that are very chronic in regard to meter theft, which is in Mtwapa, we have never, in almost a year, we have hardly had a case of a meter theft. So that is how we have done in terms of ensuring that the meters at the off-take are safe. Then the issue of private partners like the banks coming in, so that maybe we share our experiences and see how they can help us in combating the issues of non-revenue. We are so willing. Because anyone who is willing to assist us in terms of reducing our non-revenue, that is a friend. And therefore, we are very open to that. Anytime you would want to come to our organizations so that you can have a sitting or an experience with us, we are so ready. One last thing, maybe the best practices. I want to say, we have to embrace technology where necessary so that we are not left behind. This is a digital era. Things are coming, things are customized that can enable us perform better, operate better. And I'm talking about like the equipments that are there which can help us in reducing physical losses. Those technologies, GIS and the billing systems that are always improved to ensure that we perform better, we are supposed to embrace them because this technology is actually going to take us far. And then also, I want to highlight on the issue of getting everything right. Getting everything right means at the beginning, if you know that your monster in the house is the non-revenue, you need to strategize very well. You know, you identify your weak areas so that you can have a plan of how exactly you can be able to handle all these challenges in this area. And then also correct categorization of customers. I think we are one of the organizations that this thing had affected us. You know, if you go into the system, you find that there is a company, but this company was registered under an individual. So in terms of the tariff, if you look at how you bill a domestic consumer and how you're supposed to bill an industrial, an industry or a commercial entity is very different. So looking into our systems, you could find so many connections under individuals, but this is a company, that is a commercial entity. And therefore, I want to emphasize on this because it can also help us improve in our billing if we get the correct categorization of our customers. And then the last thing is consistency in executing these non-revenue reduction measures. You know, most of us, if you find that you are within the comfort zone, then you believe that is the end of it, so you relax a bit. And then at the end, you find yourself going back to the same level you are. I have seen this happening even in our organization, whereby there's a time, if we perform very badly, everybody is coming on you. Everybody wants to know what has happened. That is the time everybody will be very serious with regard to all those activities that have been put in regard to reduction of non-revenue. But once you record a drop, like over 1% or 2%, you feel like you have already done a lot, it's enough. Then, so we have been just moving up and down every day because there is no consistency in how we are supposed to be executing these non-revenue activities. Non-revenue activities should be routine activities. The same way we treat the maintenance and activities in our systems, we should also make non-revenue activities a routine. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Manamwembe, for those very important good practices that you'd like the symposium to carry forward. Then next, Margaret.
Thank you very much. First, to answer Mr. Kioko from National Bank. We'd really appreciate the banks and other stakeholders to have that 1 week and understand our systems, because the systems at the water utilities are not really understood. But I've seen when people are coming for their products and they work with us through the billing system, they are able to understand most of our areas. So I would really like that concept where the bankers can come and spend a week, and the utilities can also go to the bank also and understand why it's easy to get that loan. Secondly, banks are the fund managers in our pension schemes. And the water utilities in 2 schemes, they are the major contributors. I know there is a restriction in the investment portfolio, but taking into consideration that the water coverage in Kenya is 60%, I think that is something that needs also to be looked into. Instead of, we have saved a lot of billions in the schemes, can that money also be used as an investment portfolio to increase coverage and also for non-revenue water management? So that one is for the fund managers to go and think about. About the theft of water meters, mostly now we are going away from the brass meters because of that theft, but also to take care of the theft of water by the customers. It is always good to seal the meters so that when the customer breaks the seal, you can surcharge them. And the practice also in our utility is that once a meter is stolen, it is the customer who replaces, and since they're expensive, they also take care of that. About my take home, I'm happy that this symposium has brought all the stakeholders together. I'm looking at it, in the last 2 years when we had this COVID, everybody started researching on how we are going to handle it. That is how we had people manufacturing the PPEs, others, the sanitizers. I'm looking forward to an understanding that through this symposium, everybody will know that there is a role that they can play in this, because the water companies cannot reduce this non-revenue water alone, but with the collaboration from other stakeholders, that one will help us reduce when we take it upon ourselves, each one of us. The other issue is about the training. I'm hoping that from here we are going to get a unit, a core unit in our KV and other technical institutions, so that at least they are taken through to understand what non-revenue water is and the many issues that we have learned here, how we can tackle it. And also with that, I also hope that we shall have the standard operating procedures on how to reduce our non-revenue water, because there are many standards that have been made, and sometimes they need to be harmonized. And I'm also looking for the ones that have been made by the ministry through JICA that to be rolled out within this month. Otherwise, I'm very happy. These symposiums are also important because people come to engage and benchmark from one another. So the benchmarking part is also a plus for me. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Let's give them another applause of clap. Thank you so much, the presenters, for this session. You have made this session very successful. This session was about the best practices and experiences. We have had so many practices, but there are few that I think we cannot miss to carry home. One of them, it is actually now evident that the billing analysis that was being fronted by JICA has added value to non-water revenue reduction. It helps to understand where is the problem, and then it diagnoses to enable us know what do you do next. Two, some of our WSPs have established non-revenue water units. Our WSPs have established non-revenue water units as institutions. When you have an institution to address a particular problem, actually it is a good way to institutionalize that particular issue. So that is also a very good practice. And as our presenter have said, we need to strengthen by building capacity. The last presenter have talked about continuous capacity building. But having that unit is very important. The concept of DMA also has actually enhanced the fight against reduction. Then technology and GIS officers has also added a lot of value to this war on non-revenue water. Yesterday, perhaps you remember, the chief guest asked, how comes if you see a burst on the road, you don't report? But this tool, the GIS tool, can be able to help us to detect these leaks and address them within a short time. Then there's the issue of consistency in implementing the activities that is reducing the non-revenue water. As has been said, you can see the graphs were going down, but we need to be consistent so that we sustain the downward trend. So we need to keep on doing them on routine basis as we have been told. Then the issue of funding is also important, and we have partners, the bankers, who are ready to work with us to further this agenda. Finally, stakeholder collaboration involving the communities. It is not only about WSPs alone, but also the communities, individuals, in this fight against non-revenue water. Those are some of the key important carry-away messages we have heard from our panelists. And with that, I want now bring this session to an end, and I want another clap for our presenters. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Mr. Pondo. Let's appreciate Mr. Pondo as he sits down. Thank you. Thank you very much. It's turning out to be a very rich day too. I just wish we could make time stand for a moment, because we have a symposium which has so many presentations, and we are very, very glad for that. a symposium which has so many innovations which we are sharing here. And we know there's a time in history when a human being asked God to make time stand still, and it actually did, isn't it? Are we aware of that? That it's possible we can ask God to make time stand still so that we can have all these presentations done. So maybe we pray for that, each of us individually, that today is day 2, we need to have all these presentations shared to us without losing quality of the deliberations. So because of that, and again because of the flow of the themes, I wish to kindly request that we go to the second theme, which is the role of financial institutions and private sector in the management on non-revenue water. They say there is one room which is never full. That's the room of improvement. I know a bit earlier I said we were to start with Safaricom, but because of this change of making the program flow, I wish to kindly request that we go in this order. Kindly bear with me. We'll start with the first presentation coming from our partners, that's National Bank, the role of financial institution in non-revenue water management. Thereafter, we'll have a presentation by Water Fund, the managing director, the role of financing in reduction of non-revenue water. Immediately after that, we'll have a presentation by KEWI, by Engineer Duor, public-private partnerships and non-revenue water management. And then fourth, we'll have CEO Esri. We hope to do these 4 presentations between now and 11:15, so that we break for tea then. So that when we come back from tea break, we kindly will get into Safaricom. Kindly bear with me. We go into Safaricom, your presentations, and then we see how we catch up on lost time. So, National Bank, I do hope you are ready. Your presentation, National Bank. It's projected. Karibu sana.
All protocols observed. Good morning. I'm trying to save time, Director. My name is Peter Mutiga. Good to see you, Willis, from National Bank. I believe the presentation that I'm going to take you through is something we have gone through with you. The role of financial institutions, in this case NBK, in reduction of non-revenue water. The role of the bank, ideally, all of you know, primarily is money. So the key area that we can be able to support the sector in the reduction of non-revenue water will rotate around money, number 1, number 2, advocacy, and maybe number 3, collection and the payment systems. We have seen we have 2 types of non-revenue, that is commercial and physical. Physical, we can be able to support through financing so that you can rehabilitate your infrastructure. But more so, on the commercial, we are able to provide a robust payment and billing systems that are integrated with your bank accounts so that we reduce the losses that comes with billing, with collection of money, with payments, and I believe that's why we want to play a bigger role. I'm sure, I'm waiting for the slides, but I'm also summarizing. Sorry, I've started with the summary. But more so, it is good to appreciate that all of you we have accepted our Magic Connect program, from the sector players to the WSPs, the other SMEs in the ecosystem. And maybe just to give a highlight of where we are focusing on, we focus on all those SDGs, but more so on SDG number 6. And if you can go to the next slide, we can be able to show our objectives that we want to lead 5 billion in the sector in the next 2-3 years. We have trained our staff, we continue training them. We continue also engaging staff from our partners in form of internships, and also what my colleague Fred Kyoko requested, issue program that we can be able to interact at water service providers and also at the bank level. So we also want to train water service providers on these water technologies, and this CEO WASPA, I request that if you can be able to organize how we can have advocacy programs with each and every WSP. NBK will be very willing to sponsor those programs in each and every 91 water service providers. I was expecting a clap there, but I see you. And this will reduce the physical non-revenue. We intend also to ensure that the people that work with you, the people that in the ecosystem providing smart meters, the people that are doing the billing solutions are well financed, provide the best technologies. So we don't only focus on the WSPs, we also want to focus on the MSMEs within the sector. All those people that work as contractors, they can only do a good job if they are well catered for, and NBK is ready for that. So through that, we want to achieve access to about new 600,000 people in rural and peri-urban areas. We expect to create jobs in those MSMEs, and also reduce non-revenue in every other company that we are working with below not only 40%, but we can go to maybe 30%, the other year 20%. And through this, we expect that NBK will be one of the greatest partners in a water ecosystem in the country. So I mentioned about the commercial non-revenue, and you can go to the next slide, and I said the best thing that we can offer you and what we know best is issues related to the money. That is the payments, the collections, giving you all the channels that each and every consumer will be able to pay water bills at their convenience and avoid all that leakages. To this, we call upon you. We have done some few integrations with some water companies. We have those, so in Nyeri, Bomet, Kakamega, Nanyuki, and we also want to do this to all the companies so that you can have a free flow of the payments. You can have reconciliation on a daily basis. The consumers and also the water company can know who paid what on a daily basis. And through this, we will also extend this to the consumers by offering a mobile loan. So in the future, if you integrate, for example, Kilifi Mariakani, we'll make sure that after 1, 2, 3 months that you are able to see your customers' data, you are able even to give them an overdraft that they should be able to pay water in advance, and then they'll be left with an overdraft at the bank level. That way offers the cash flows to WSPs to continue with their operations. So this is the greatest area that we can be able to support the WSPs in management of non-revenue. And as I said, the bank is ready. 5 billion is not quite some coins. It's quite money that can be able to implement all those strategies that you have. And I believe the sector players around here and the officials from the ministry, together with support from WSTF, we believe we can be able to provide this. I'm sure you have 1 or 2 questions. Yes, I'm done.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Our presenter from National Bank, Mr. Mutiga. That was wonderful. And I assure you, dear delegates and dear guests, that the presentation will be available. They are being captured by the Secretariat so that you can interrogate them further later on. Now I wish to invite the CEO Waterfund, Mr. Willis Umbai, to come and give you a presentation. Question and answer sessions, we can kindly hold your questions so that we do them immediately after Mr. Oduori's presentation. Thank you.
The Irrigation Secretary, the Director Kewi, National Bank representatives, CEO WASPA, CEO WASREP, all protocols observed. My name, as has been said, is Willie Sombai. I'm the Acting Chief Executive Officer of Water Sector Trust Fund. And just by way of mentioning, we are happy to be part of this non-revenue symposium. As you know, we are a financing institution, and our participation in this event, therefore, goes in line with our mandate, which is basically to finance the counties, mainly through the water companies that we have in Kenya, and a good number of them are presented here. So maybe before I just embark on the slides, by way of some remarks, is that we are aware of the impact of non-revenue water, especially on financing, because if we do say that we are currently losing 47%, then it really means that that is money we are losing. Secondly, in financing, we do look at the ratings of most of the water companies. And non-revenue, while we are doing most of our commercial financing programs, what we do look at is what is the shadow rating given by the World Bank and other institutions such as WASREB in their impact report, and it really influences how we do the financing. So the better we have it, with the more we reduce it, the better. Maybe we move to the next slide. As I've said, I've highlighted the mandate of Water Sector Trust Fund, and I think quite a number of the participants know that we are a public entity, a parastatal within the Ministry of Water, Sanitation and Irrigation, and our mandate is to provide conditional and unconditional grants to the counties, and this is to help in development of water infrastructure for the purposes of increasing access to water. And mostly, as I've said, we do our work with various implementing partners, most prominently water service providers, the water companies, but we also have other implementing partners. So the mandate, how we undertake it, is that we have several mechanisms for investments. There are 4 in number. We have result-based financing, which is quite prominent, and what we will believe will help us mostly in reducing the non-revenue water. I'm glad with the kind of partnership or the opportunities that National Bank is also putting to the fore, apart from other banking institutions. Because if you look at most of the challenges which have been presented here, one which is very relevant and dear to us is the lack of financing. But I think we rather start looking at it as an opportunity, because the experience we have as WSTF in financing, especially blended financing through OBA, has demonstrated that the water companies have big appetite for this money. The banking sector is willing to give the resources which are required. So it's up to us to see how to move this forward. So apart from result-based financing, we have rural, which is mostly grant-based, water resources, and also urban. Please move to the next slide. So here, we just wanted to show or demonstrate a whole continuum of the water spectrum, right from the intake up to the time where we have the outflow. I know too well that this is mostly on non-revenue water, this symposium, but it's also good to see a whole continuum of the water system, right from the time we get it from the intake and also outflow. For us, most of our products focuses both on water access and improved sanitation. I know there has been consistent request and advice from the Irrigation Secretary that we also think of how we can work together in terms of financing irrigation, and I believe that is in the some of the next steps. So in the continuum, we will be looking at financing of components which are related to the theme, and that brings me now to the non-revenue projects which are financed by WSTF. And as has been mentioned, if we could move to the next slide. As has been mentioned, the non-revenue can be, in terms of projects or issues, can be classified in the two areas, that is physical loss and commercial losses, which have been really dealt with. Whoever is manning this, please, if you can move to the next slide so that the participants have the benefit of looking at what I'm talking about. So it is categorized basically, and this has been discussed. I don't want to spend much more time on it in terms of the physical and real losses. And the rich discussions which have been here have even explored much more into detail what constitutes to the physical losses. And those are some of the things that we look at while trying to provide financial solutions through the entities that we work with. So in terms of commercial losses, we have indicative activities that can be considered. The reason why I'm talking about this is that in the next slides, I'll be very practical. I'll move from theory to practice in terms of what we are supporting, what are the opportunities, which are the projects that we are supporting, and the banks are here, a representative at least, who will also benefit from the kind of projects that we are talking about. So currently, and this is, can you move to the next slide, please? So what are the current opportunities that we have? We have donor funding available under WSTF. Number one, I will talk about, we have PBC project by World Bank. This is about 14.67 million euros. PBC means performance-based contracting project. And I think the good thing is that some of the WSTF, some of the WSPs that are here are currently benefiting from some of this. Then we have AOD. AOD is basically aid on delivery, supported by the German Development Bank, KfW. This is phase 3 project worth 2.6 million euros. IS, what is more important for all WSTF, all WSPs to note, is that today is the deadline for this application. So I hope all the WSPs that are here, and this was in the newspapers, you saw it, you have followed the eligibility criteria, you have provided all the information that is required. Bwana Mbugo, please let me call you out. Terms and conditions are applicable. So there is no politics here. You just do the right thing. We also know the economic problem that at no point will we have resources more than the needs that we have. So terms and conditions apply. All the WSPs, the balance sheets, the types of projects, the designs, the cash flows, all those have to be provided as were given in the advert. And we'll be very happy to work with all the companies that have applied and with the commercial banks. For instance, National Bank. We know that most of our portfolio has been with other banks, but we are very much willing to have new entrants such as National Bank joining the fold. In terms of the PBC, I'll be giving a little more detail per each. So I believe this information is what I've been trying to say, that this is financed by KfW. I mean, the period for which it will run is between 2020 now and 31st December 2025. The amount allocated I've spoken to, and also the financing aspect. Can we move to the next slide about the project structure? In terms of equity, for those of us who participated in OBA, output-based aid, there is some slight differences. While output-based aid did not require equity, this one requires equity of 10%, which either comes from the WSP or from the county. So it is how you organize your house, because if you saw the mandate very clearly, WSTF is mandated to finance the counties. But we believe that the WSPs are owned by the counties. So by extension, because this is, Ambugo, this is very important, because we have sometimes problems with the parliamentarians, we have problems with the WSPs and also the counties in terms of what is the nature of relationship when we are doing the financing. And recently, we had to really, when IS, we really had to beg in a program how then we are financing the counties in the Horn of Africa, which the legal council was really instrumental in helping us. So the commercial loan then comes 90%, and the subsidy is 50%. In OBA, we had subsidy of 60%, but we are also trying to wean off. It is important to appreciate some of the WSPs that have already taken the initiative to go to the commercial banks and get their own loans without necessarily any subsidy. So as time goes by and we are doing blended financing, even under revolving facility which we are developing, we want the levels of subsidies to go down as the WSPs take a little more of the financing of the projects on their own. So, of course, we also recognize the issue with the capacity of the WSPs, and so part of the support which is being given is the technical assistance to help in developing the bankable proposals, which then the commercial banks will be willing to take up as projects that can be financed. What happens is this, basically that the WSP, once these projects have been developed, you approach a commercial bank, and then the commercial bank will finance it and we pay the subsidy. So when we talk about subsidy of 50%, we pay it upon agreement with the financial bank or financial institution, and also the milestones which have been agreed upon are achieved. So on the second program that we have is the performance-based contracting for non-revenue reduction. And this is financed through World Bank. And we are the executing agent as WSTF. The period for implementation, I think, is rather shocking. it should be ending 31st October this year, meaning that it is ongoing, but it's a rolling program, and we are also in consultation with World Bank in terms of what could be the most suitable timing or extension for the project. The phase one of the project, as I will explain, maybe we go to the next slide. So maybe just a few more, is that before we go to the phases, because I'll be able to explain, is that WASREB, and I think thanks Bwana Keter for being here. We were first in, the World Bank and WASREB did the initial assessments and pre-qualification under the performance-based contracting. And so 5 water companies were selected. And these are Nyeri, Naivasha, Nanyuki, Nakuru Rural, and Eldoret. They were eligible. I think the 6th one was Kakamega Water Company, but there were issues which arose which made the Kakamega company, I think in terms of shares and ownership and the difference between whether it is a corporation or a water company. I think, Wanambugo, you know what ensued, but we are aware that now they have reverted to the modality. I leave that to the regulator to talk about at some point. But this is also important in terms of compliance, because we saw, even under the CLSG program, what happened to the companies that don't comply to some of the basic rules, which are they are required to under the regulators' purview. So the implementation of the program will involve outsourcing technical, commercial, and construction activities related to non-revenue reduction, while providing the contractor with incentives to achieve the desired results. The reason why we are emphasizing that is it's slightly different. This one is slightly different from other contracting programs where you pay the contractor upon provision of the input. This one, it's the outputs that are being paid for. Anytime you hear about performance-based support program, all it means is that the results must be seen so that you get compensated or rewarded for the kind of effort that you are, and there are several indicators of the kind of outputs that can be considered, like amount of water saved, number of illegal connections detected, number of customers receiving water on 24/7 basis. And some of the unique, if you move with me to the next slides, some of the uniqueness of this is that it varies. It differs from management contracts, concession leases, or other forms of private sector participation. And that the utility or the WSP here maintains the control, so there is no takeover by the contractor who is coming to handle the performance-based contract. And the utility takes advantage of the expertise from the contractor. And they don't necessarily mean a takeover, as I have said. So in this program, the next part of it is who is working with us. We have an international consultant called Z&A Consulting Engineer, which have vast experience internationally. Actually, they are not Kenyan contractors, so we have discussed with them, and they have great expertise. They have produced the first or initial assessment reports on revenue water, which have indicated even the kind of interventions that will then go into the PVC contract. In the next slide, and along what I have said, one, they have established suitability for PVC model For some, I can say there's the talk of metering systems, and we are talking about thousands of meters. For some, they are talking about overhaul of dilapidated systems, and that is already there. So they have developed an indicative PBC, performance constructing scope, for non-revenue water. And in the second phase, which they are getting into, the consultant is working with the WSPs on support activities such as developing probable PBC contract and assist with preparations of bidding documents. So I said on this, I'm talking about practical we are doing. The next one is two, because I know support that we got in two batches. That was CLSG1 from May to August 2020, and then from September to December 2020. That is almost done and dusted. But we thought it would be good to look at the other issues such as financial recovery plans after the COVID pandemic, so that we see what can we be able to do. And under this, we have around 31 WSPs with 77 short-term interventions, which is ongoing now. The restructuring paper has been finalized by the World Bank. There is what WSTF and the ministry is doing. And this is basically to work on the OCCR as a major indicator for support. And allow me to say, if you look at point number 5, it is the performance of the WSPs that will guarantee that they don't return any money. So it's a returnable grant, but if you do well achieving a percentage of 70%, there's a lot of details and workings about that which we might not be able to discuss now. The WSP will retain the grant. When IS, for those of the WSPs that will not achieve the 70%, they will be returning a percentage or a proportion of the money at the end of the program. And the good news is that that money will be used to start our revolving facility for the sector, so that we also make sure that we can still work with the commercial banks to make money available. The irony with grants is that we don't have total control over the grants. The grants come when our benefactors are happy, or when they feel that they should do it, or when there is an emergency. The good thing with these other financial sources, innovative financial sources, is that when you go to National Bank, they have money. When we have an arrangement for blended financing, there is resources. So it's the readiness of the resources which is actually going to help us change the sector. If we are able to look at this innovative financing vis-a-vis the grants, I think we are better placed. And since most WSPs have demonstrated the ability, I think it's the way to go. I want to say that as WSTF, in our formulation of our strategy, we are giving greater emphasis or making greater emphasis on blended or innovative financing as a way of it. Lastly, because I said that we are talking about practical issues, I know JICA has helped. From the presentations which have been done here, we have seen significant support coming from JICA. But we also have now the Finnish government coming with what we call Public Investment Facility. It is a program which is almost being finalized, and will also come with a lot of technology support along the issues of non-revenue water, and we believe it will be able to make significant, support the WSPs in making significant reduction in terms of non-revenue water. So I would want to end there and thank you very much for listening to the presentations that I've made.
Thank you very, very much, Mr. Ombai. Kindly appreciate Mr. Ombai again for us. It's very innovative, very informative, and a very rich presentation, and we appreciate that. We have 2 more presentations to listen to. One is from Engineer Odur from Kewi. Mr. Odur, kindly come forward. And then the next one, which will be our last one before we go for break, is coming from our partner from Safaricom. Kindly also be ready so that we do this. Then we have a few short question and answer session, and then we go for tea break. An announcement as Engineer Dor comes here. There is a lady who is registering those of us who were to go for the field excursion tomorrow. Kindly stand where you are at the back. There's a lady standing near the exit. Yeah, that lady waving. She tells me she's surprised nobody has registered at her desk, not even one person. And we have some very exciting excursion prepared for you tomorrow. It's a good opportunity for you to, what do they say? Let your hair down. Yes, so kindly register so that we have that part of the program tomorrow also. Engineer Dor?
Thank you very much, Matara Kaburi. So just like Kaburi has mentioned, I'm William Odur. I'm a lecturer at Kenya Water Institute. And I'm going to do a presentation on the private sector involvement in the non-revenue water management in Kenya. So if kindly you could show the slide so that we can be able to discuss through. So from yesterday, of course, up to today, we've really had insightful engagements as far as the issues of non-revenue water management is concerned. And we find that actually non-revenue water issue in the country currently, it's something of great concern. Because if we look at it critically, we see that we are actually on the upward trajectory as far as the issues of non-revenue water is concerned. Because previously, we were at the national average of about 42%. These are so far gone up, and currently we are at 47%. So actually, it's an issue of concern because something actually needs to be done so that we can be able to arrest this situation. So if you look at maybe the water service providers that we have currently, you find that the kind of resources that they have, or maybe the resources that they have, is not able to maybe sustain the programs in non-revenue water management. And if you look at maybe in most of the water service providers, those that are actually doing well in non-revenue water management, you'll find that maybe they got support, maybe from donors or from elsewhere. Like maybe a good example is the case of maybe the JICA interventions that have taken place in the non-revenue water management. So you saw when they came to Embu, they helped Embu reduce the levels of non-revenue water. They've gone to Meru, Narok, and all that. So that means that the water service providers that currently have, they don't have actually the resources, they don't have the financial muscle to be able to handle and deal with the issue of non-revenue water management. So this brings in the question that the private sector, what can be their involvement in the management of non-revenue water? Because from yesterday's discussion up to now, you see that they're talking about maybe the loss to a tune of about 11 billion shillings in a sector which is the turnover is about 22 billion. So if the private sector could be involved in the management of this non-revenue water, they can be able to bring interventions. So like maybe in this case, we have things like the banks. They can be able to bring in the financial aspect. We're talking about, we have Safaricom. They have the technology, so they can be able to bring in the technological aspect, which can be able to help in reducing this non-revenue water. So if kindly you could just move to the next slide, just. So that's just basically the layout to just understanding the problem in non-revenue water, so what is the potential for the private sector involvement, and the performance appraisal on the same. Next slide, please. So I'll jump this because these are just basics of non-revenue water, which I'm sure every one of us knows, just about the amount of water which is not billed from production, so just the difference between billing and production. Next slide. Of course, the water service providers, when they're calculating their non-revenue water, so they use the IOR, or water balance table. Of course, this also, sometimes you find even how some of the water service providers do their water balance, sometimes also has some few issues or problems, but we'll not delve into this. So next slide, please. Okay, so the problem of non-revenue water, this has been discussed from yesterday up to today. The current national average, which you have mentioned, which has gone up from 42% to about 47%. So this shows that currently we are on the upward trajectory, whereby the level of non-revenue water continues increasing. And when you talk about it in terms of money, so we find that you're losing about 11.61 billion shillings annually. So if you can think about this money which is getting lost, 11.61 billion, which is a lot of money, which actually can be, if this can be remedied, then what it means that we can be able to supply more water, because from the previous presenters, you see they're talking about the coverage, the national coverage of water is about 60%. And imagine if you are losing about 11.61 billion. If you can be able to save even 50% of this, we can be able to enhance the water coverage. Kindly, next slide, next. The sector benchmark, which was talked about, 20%. So we're trying to look at how can maybe the private sector come in to be able to help the water service providers to be able to bring down their levels of non-revenue water, if maybe not up to the sector benchmark of the 20%, but maybe to some kind of acceptable levels. So next slide. Next one. So these I just talked about the sector turnover, which is about 22.796 billion, and then the loss, which that we mentioned, is about 11 billion Kenya shillings. Next slide. So if you look at from the impact report, the latest impact report, you find that almost over 21 counties. About 21 counties have their level of non-revenue water above 50%. And if you look at this, you find that one of the water service providers that is highly hit, like Migori, which is having about 77%. So imagine out of the amount of water which they are producing, they are losing about 77% of what they're producing. So what they're just billing is about 23% of it. And if you look at it, you'll find that the turnover of that company is about 23 million Kenya shillings. So if this can be remedied, you can imagine maybe the justice that we can be able to do to the water which is being lost. So imagine out of the 47 counties that we have, 21 counties have levels of non-revenue water which is above 50%. And you can see most of the counties enumerated at that point. So next, so this actually is from the impact report, the latest impact report. So the challenge in management of non-revenue water as faced by water service providers, you find that the kind of resources that the water service providers have is quite minimal, but the requirements and the needs are quite a lot. So because mainly you find that the source of revenue for maybe the water service providers, maybe just from the monthly billings, or maybe from donors, we can be able to finance them. But the needs that they have is quite a lot. Things like they need to do infrastructure expansion, personal emoluments, they have the levies, the operation and maintenance. So the resources they have is minimal, but the needs is quite a lot. So that's why you find sometimes, due to the needs that they have, you find that most of the water service providers sometimes, they don't put money into programs that goes into reduction of non-revenue water. Okay, next slide. So this just shows maybe the sources of revenues for the water service providers. You find that maybe they get money from lenders, donors, county government, maybe transfers, and the revenue from tariff. So revenue from tariff, basically the billing. And this is the major source for the water service providers. Next slide. So in management of non-revenue water, there's one component which is key. And the key component in management of non-revenue water is just about the management of the infrastructure. So how is the infrastructure managed? So you'll find that from the talks that we've had from yesterday up to this particular time, you find that the discussion basically just revolving around what we call the physical losses, the commercial losses. And you find that physical losses may be due to the dilapidated infrastructure, the water service providers, or the networks are old. Some cases I've gone through several water service providers. You'll find that even those water service providers who still have maybe pipes like asbestos pipes into their system, some of the pipelines that they have were laid down during the colonial era. So these systems are so dilapidated, and this is aggravating the issue of the physical losses, and also there are aspects of the commercial losses. You find that maybe the metering system, the kind of meters they have, maybe is under billing or under registering. Some companies have stack meters. Some companies, you find that maybe their billing they do in flat rate billing, so that they don't have, maybe the systems are not 100% metered and all that. So the basics in managing non-revenue basically is about the maintenance or a well-maintained infrastructure. So infrastructure basically goes all the way up to the network, the system, billing systems that we have, and all that. And as you look at it critically, you'll find that non-revenue water, basically, this thing is more of something like a management issue. How are you managing your infrastructure? How are we managing our metering system? How are we managing our billing system? How are we dealing with the customer care and all that? So you find in managing non-revenue water, there are a lot or a myriad of activities which are involved. So in management or in maintaining the infrastructure, so this is normally affected by a number of things, because the costs of running the infrastructure, sometimes also there's the issue of the lack of capacity in the water service providers, and the poor maintenance practices, poor design. There are sometimes also in these water companies where there's lack of management commitment in managing non-revenue water. And another issue is about the corruption concerns. And if we start discussing about corruption in the water sector, it cuts across so many things, because the illegal connections, the meter readers colluding with the customers, something like so. The corruption aspect also is another concern in management of non-revenue water. Next slide. So despite all these problems, I think there's a viable option that the water service providers can be able to take. And this viable option is how can they be able to partner with the private sector to be able to have their involvement in non-revenue water management. Why am I talking about the private sector? Because if you look at the private sector, basically they have the technology, they have the financial muscle, they have the technical know-how. So if the private sector could be involved in the management of non-revenue water, so I think we can be able to reduce this thing to some kind of an acceptable level. So in this case, maybe water companies, you can be able to explore the option of the private-public partnerships. So whereby you bring in the private sector into the management of the non-revenue water by use of maybe various models which are available, or maybe them bringing in whatever they have, whether it is the technology or whether it is money, so that you can be able to help in managing non-revenue water. So next slide. So what are some of the options which are available for partnership with the private sector in non-revenue water management? So just like I've mentioned, the water service providers, of course, they lack the capacity. One thing is the capacity. The other thing is the expertise to manage the non-revenue water. So there could be source of assistance from the private sector where they could be involved in management of non-revenue waters, and this could vary from a long-term private partnership to service contract and even to subcontracting some of the certain tasks which involve non-revenue water management. Because if you look at the issue of the non-revenue water management, so basically it's just looking around the commercial losses, the physical losses. So the water service providers need to look into their performance, and then they see where or at what point do they lack. So from there, they can be able to partner with private sectors, just like I've mentioned, that they have the financial muscle, they have the technical know-how. So from there, they can be able to find which is the viable option that they can be able to use to partner, so that they can be able to reduce the levels of non-revenue water. So next. So private sector contribution. So what private sector can be able to bring into the issues of non-revenue water management? So they can be able to bring things like new technology, which I've mentioned, technical know-how, better incentives on for project performance, creative solutions for design and implementation of the programs, and also they can be able to bring qualified human resources. So there are various issues of various components that the private sector can be able to bring into the issue of non-revenue water management. Because as things stand now, we have to be alive to the fact that most of the water companies are really incapacitated in terms of non-revenue water management. This is why the levels are continuing to increase. Because if you can find a company that has a level of non-revenue water at 77%, this is unacceptable. So something has to be done so that we can be able to bring this thing to some manageable level. So if the companies cannot be able to do this on their own, then there are options whereby they can be able to partner, of course, within the regulatory framework. They can be able to partner with the private sector in managing the issue of non-revenue water. If it is the issue of meters, because I think there's something as well, like maybe the smart meter technology and all that. So there are those companies that maybe are advanced in such a technology, so they can be able to partner with this water service provider, so that can be able to provide that service, and in the process help them manage their levels of non-revenue water. Kindly next slide, please. So what are some of the options? So some of the available options are things like the delegated management and public-private partnership. So delegated management, whereby maybe just like the water service provider. So one of the issue, or one of the things that they use in managing non-revenue water, is maybe the creation of the district meter areas. So you can be able maybe to take one district meter area, and then you delegate to maybe a contractor, and then you tell them manage this non-revenue. Of course, based on the regulatory framework, you agree with them. If you do this, then this is what you're going to have. So you give them maybe some kind of incentives. So that is one way, maybe the delegated management approach. Then under delegated management approach, there are several things which can be used, things like concessions, lease, and management contract. Another issue is a case whereby you can be able to do outsourcing of non-revenue water reduction activities, which I think I had being mentioned by another presenter before me. Also, if there's lack of technical know-how, so you can also be able to seek for technical assistant contracts. The next slide. So this just shows some of the forms of private participation. So things like service contracts. So service contracts, so whereby maybe you can be able to contract an organization or a private entity to be able to offer a certain service. So in this case, we're talking about the management of non-revenue water. So things like maybe management of the metering system, management of the billing system, and all that. Then we have things like management contracts, lease, concession, and build, operate, and own. So of course, to the right, that's on a higher level, and that might require a lot of discussion. But if you look at service contract and management contract, so in service contracts, you can be able to subcontract maybe some of the services that you deal with to the private sector. Of course, with some kind of incentives, because even the private sector, they need to make some money. So since they need to make money, so you really have to prove to them that maybe if you give them that, what is going to be their income from that. So these are just some of the forms that can be applied in private sector participation. Next slide. So this just emphasizes the same forms which can be applied in private sector participation. So things like service contracts, you can be able to have to 3 to 5 years, limited delegation. Then we have the lease agreements, which can go 5 to 30 years. And of course, on the higher level, you have the concessions, which of course is more or less of total delegation of the services. Next slide. So the previous presenter, I think, from Water Sector Trust Fund, he mentioned something about the public performance-based service contracting for non-revenue water. I think at the level we are, this is the direction that actually we need to go. Though yesterday, from one of the presentation, I think, whether it was from JICA or I heard them say that we really need to be careful with the performance-based service contracting. But if we look at it critically, we find that currently the situation as it is, the water service providers, to put it plainly, maybe in Kiswahili, wameshindwa to manage the level of non-revenue water. This is one thing we have to agree to. Wameshindwa. So, kama wameshindwa, so you need to find a way that you can be able to have this thing managed. So that means we need to bring in the private sector. So they can be able to help. In which ways they can help? They can maybe come in with financing. They can be able to come with technical assistance. And I'm glad maybe the financiers here, like the National Bank, so they can look at options in this non-revenue water. How can they be able to come in financing non-revenue water reduction activities? Technical know-how, maybe Safaricom, when talk about the things, issues to do with smart meters and all that, how can they be able to come in? Because as things are right now, we cannot agree to continue with the trajectory that we are taking. Because if just the other year it was 42, this year is 47. We don't know, next 2 years it's going to be 50. It goes to 60, 70. So we cannot allow this to continue. So we have to find options that we can be able to use to reduce this level of non-revenue water. So if we bring in the issue of the public, the private sector involvement, so I think we can be able to make some little gains as far as this is concerned. So next. So the key attributes in this, basically what you're looking at is just outcome orientation based on expected results. So when you maybe subcontract or maybe you give a service contract, so what you're looking at, what are the outcomes that are going to come out of this. So when also you're entering into this, you must have clearly defined objectives. You must have time frames, and then performance incentives. So if you reduce level of non-revenue water from this to this, then what are the incentives that maybe you'll be able to give out? Then another thing is performance monitoring. So performance monitoring is very important because just in one of the informal discussions that I was having yesterday with one of the delegates was that when you give this, maybe you subcontract the management of non-revenue water, maybe to a contractor or maybe to an entity. So what will be able to happen is that, non-revenue water also, is directly proportional to the level of service or the hours of service. So what you would be able to do is just to reduce the service hours. So you say if you're getting water for 24 hours, then they reduce to 12 hours. So if you reduce to 12 hours, definitely you'll be able to reduce the level of non-revenue water. So performance monitoring is very important. So that you don't compromise on the service that you offer, but at the same time, you reduce the level of non-revenue water. So as much as you give the management role maybe to an entity, but also you need to monitor how they are doing this. So such a contract basically should be clear, should be detailed, concise, specific, measurable, and quantifiable, so that you can be able to have an output which you can be able to actually quantify, and from that output, so we don't compromise on the service that you're offering, but also we do what we can to be able to reduce the levels of non-revenue water. Next. So this is just maybe the steps in doing that. So maybe planning stage, acquisition strategy, contract management, and then monitoring. Next slide. So I think my presentation ends at that point. So my parting shot basically would be that the water service providers, it's high time that now we try to find options with the private sector, because it is true to tumeshindwa to manage the non-revenue water. It's not that we don't want to, but it is because we don't have the resources and the technology. But the private sector, I know they have the resources which they are willing to input into this activity. They have the technology, so it is high time we find options that we can be able to use so that we reduce the level of non-revenue water. It is possible, it can be done, and with corporations and all that, we'll be able to do it. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's appreciate Engineer Odur. You can tell from his passion, it's actually infectious. Thank you again, Engineer. And it's 11:15. We kindly want to request our last presenter for this session, that's Safaricom, to come and do his presentation. As he comes up, maybe I can make the announcement after your presentation. Please do your presentation. Karibu sana, Safaricom.
Thank you very much. All protocols observed, good morning. I think early in the morning I thought I would do this presentation in the afternoon because of the delay, but thanks to him now, I think we are catching up on the program. The presentation that I have is slightly different from the theme, but I think it plugs in, is really around how do we digitize operations, water management operations. And as Safaricom, you would ask possibly, what is Safaricom's interest in water? But it's because, just move to the next slide, please. It's because we are keen on digitizing enterprises in Kenya. I just realized I didn't mention my name. Isaac Kabutha is my name, and I'm an IoT specialist. IoT is Internet of Things, smart meters, and I will try to explain that a bit later on. So Safaricom's interest is primarily the fact that we want to digitize enterprises in this country and where we operate. And we look at water as one of those areas that has potential to benefit from digitization. And we'll talk about the operations that are there in water that can be digitized to help us realize some of these things that we want to do, like non-revenue water management. So how do we do that? We help businesses to connect to people. We help people to connect to people. We help businesses to connect to knowledge, but also as well now we are enabling businesses to connect to things, to connect to infrastructure so that they can be able to get insights there. Please, and of course all that is driven by our SDG goals, key here being the SDG goal number 6. I think we've spoken about this yesterday and today, you know it very well, what the problem is. Let's move to the next slide. What is the current challenge and what is it that we are trying to digitize? One, As you know very well, I think we've been talking about manual meter reading, delayed reconciliation of payments. Customers are making payments. It's taking time to reconcile that. Disconnections is a challenge, and I'm really talking about operational items in water. I think there was mention of gate locks and all that. And then there has been attempts to do smart metering to address non-revenue water, and I hope I can get some feedback on how that has gone. But there's been some hitches, and I will try to just mention what is it that you need to be in the lookout for. And down here, we try to address these issues by, manual meter reading. There is, of course, AMR has been there for some time, and now a bit more modern with ultrasonic meters and newer electromagnetic flow meters. And AMR enabled by GSM network now is also a big thing. Secondly, payment channels, as you know very well, I think, and I must commend water service providers, they have adopted M-Pesa for payments, and that is being used widely. So then how do we improve a small aspect of it to make sure that the settlement is happening in real time? The third thing, customer disconnections. Again, we have to find a way of digitizing that aspect of operation by bringing in meters with valves that can be able to disconnect customers who need to be disconnected without necessarily having to go there. And then when we talk about smart metering implementation challenges, in the different attempts, and I have visited a couple of water service providers, one of the things I've noticed is that smart metering requires a couple of other enablers to realize the benefit. One of which being you need a network to connect those meters. The meters don't use the normal network that our phones use because of the fact that they are battery powered and they need to last with battery for almost 5 years. So there is implementation of low power networks to be able to enable meters to connect, and that hasn't worked very well. So we can move to the next slide. So how do we plan to digitize these water operations? Down here you will see homes and buildings and where we implement smart metering to connect these meters to the servers that they need to transmit to. If you can just move to the next. And then you will find there's billing systems already in place. So in certain cases, you will find water companies are putting in place billing systems. And then there's payment channels. These are the three, I'll call them three facets of trying to digitize this. But the challenge that has been there is what we call islands of digitization. There's a lot of work being done on the billing systems, but it's not talking to the meters. There's work being done on the payment channels through M-Pesa, but we think that if we bring this all together, then it makes value. So with smart metering, then we are able to make sure that these meters send the data to the platforms, the billing systems, and make sure that integration happens seamlessly so that no one has to, again, pick data from one system to input it to a billing system. From the payment channels end as well, customers are making payments through M-Pesa and other forms, bank transfers, and even cash. And you need to settle that in real time. So through M-Pesa, we know that it's possible to provide this kind of ability through an integration to the billing system so that now water companies can know in real time who has made payment and they can be settled. The other aspect is the disconnection, reconnection of customers when they don't pay and when they pay. So if you just get a chance to visit our booth there, we will show you some of the meters we have that have inbuilt valves so that if a customer is due for disconnection, that just becomes an automatic operation that then gets implemented and the customer is disconnected. Of course, with this digitization, there's costs in there, and that's why we are working with partners like National Bank to make sure that we are not compromising in trying to realize this digitization plan. Now, if you think about it, how is this being done? Of course, there's nothing new here. Meters are being read, bills are being generated, customers are making payments, but of course the integration is what is making the difference. Today, I think it takes about a week or so, or a couple of days to do meter reading. It takes again about another few days to generate bills. Then customers, at least nowadays, they receive SMSs through M-Pesa, through their phones. But then settlement as well takes time. So this entire operation can happen in real time, but currently it's taking about a week or two. So that's what we think that will help us, and this is what we have built and are trying in different water companies to see how it works. Key also is the low power network. The low power network is essentially a network we have put in place to make sure that small devices that are battery powered can operate with those batteries and last for 5 years. So we don't get the same devices to connect to the phone network. They connect to a specific network. It's called the narrowband IoT network. I'm not sure there's a lot of knowledge on it, but narrowband IoT network is a recent addition to our network offering. So we have 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, and then we also have narrowband IoT to connect things. So we can, of course, explain to you in detail when you come to the booth why this is very key in this smart metering adoption. Let's go to the next slide, please. So the different stacks is essentially the metering aspect. So digitization is just not only smart meters. It's just one of the components. There's low power networks, which are also required to achieve that. And then there's a platform and a whole system to realize all this magic. I won't spend too much time here, but this is what is enabling us to realize that digitization of meters, of the operations on water management. How are we delivering this? We are working a lot with SMEs and partners. So the challenge is there that there's, I think, almost 2 million meters. And if we have to do this kind of work, for sure we have to work with partners to support their infrastructure, support their meters, and also help us to deploy. The other thing is we have also gotten into partnerships with companies like National Bank, where we are able to provide the technology aspect, and they help us to finance these projects back to customers. And we are working on a few proposals with some of the water service providers. The other thing I wanted to mention is that there's ongoing pilots we are doing with about 15 counties, 15 water service providers to test the new network, to test the infrastructure, and I've seen a few of the customers, so we will discuss, but it's got very good progress. I think Eldoret, we did some work back in 2019 and a very successful outcome, but I think this forum is helping us to now take it to the next level. Right, so I think I will close there. Just go to the next deck. Yeah, that's it. Please visit our booth and we will explain more in detail how this digitization is happening and how it's going to change your operations in water. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. Thank you very much. One of the ways we have tried to compress time so that we cover as much ground as possible is to avail the presentations so that they can be available to you through email. Number two, we also avail the contact emails of those who are presented so that there will be avenues where you can make a follow-up on some of the concerns you may have. This is important so that we cover as much ground as possible in today's program. But just before we break for tea, there could be one or two very pressing questions for the 4 presentations. Oh, there are more than 2 I can see. Thank you very much. Remember, we had a presentation from National Bank, Mr. Mtiga. We had a presentation from Water Fund, Mr. Mbai, the CEO. We had a presentation from Kewi, Engineer Dur. I hope you're still in the house. And we have just heard from Isaac of Safaricom. So pressing questions or areas of concern. I've seen 2 hands here. May I kindly ask Isaac, Mr. Mbai, kindly come forward. To be very brief, I promise. Mr. Mbai, Mr. Mtiga, Mr. Dur, and Isaac. We keep it short so that we get to hear what questions or concerns are coming from the floor. So, Madam, you'll go first. And please have a seat. Please have a seat. I promise it will be very short. Madam.
So my name is Jamila Kata from National Bank. I am the relationship manager for water, sanitation, and hygiene. My question is to WSTF, Mr. Willis. From the bank's side, we have noticed that WSPs struggle with high costs of funds when they come to commercial banks. So my suggestion is for WSTF to commit funds to National Bank to enable us increase our capacity to lend to these WSPs at a lower rate. So I just want to know if that's possible. And then to Safaricom, Isaac, smart meters being a new technology in Kenya, I would want to know if it is a technology that is fast changing, like the solar, and what are the mitigation measures you are putting in place to ensure that these meters remain relevant in the long run?
Thank you very much for those two questions. Behind you, let's take a question. Karibu sana.
Thank you. My name is Anthony Ambugo, CEO WASPA. I'll just add voice to what the relationship manager from National Bank has said. Willis, thank you for the wonderful presentation. I've looked at your programs. There are no GOK funds. And I think, Irrigation Secretary, you're the face of government here. I think for a very, very long time we have relied on development partners. And I think we have had a series of consultations, and we think that it is time that the national government should put its hand strongly in terms of taxes in financing the water sector. And what we were thinking is the revolving fund from WSTF. It has taken a long time. And we can see that the financial institutions have come onto the stage. So there are a lot of challenges in WSPs, but we can see the uptake is low, and this was mentioned yesterday. And one of the reasons the uptake is low is because of the procurement law that is in place. And we believe that if the revolving fund can be put in place as quickly as possible, then it is easier as WSPF, being the financing institution in the water sector. You can see Safaricom has come on board, but most of the time when MDs take presentations to their boards, they are told, now can you get more quotes? But through the spirit of public-private partnership, if the government can sink maybe like 10 billion just for a start, then we have the financiers putting 10 billion. Of course, we know that the government money will come at 0%. That will also lower the cost of capital and make this attractive. So I think in this conference, we require commitment from national government on how quickly this fund will be set up. And when WSTF is involved and it brings other partners, it is easier to have these applications as you have rolled out, absorbed by the WSPs. I've had the presenter on public-private partnerships. I like your passion. I think if we had a passionometer here and would measure, then it would hit the end. As a practitioner, I've worked in the water sector, and the dynamics are a little bit different. And you can see if we are relating non-revenue water, its trajectory from 42% to 47%, you realize it is related to devolution. So is devolution a panacea or a problem to the water sector? This is the question that we need to ask. And I think moving forward, we need county governments in such discussions, because as much as we are discussing at the end of the day, they are the people who put the leadership of the utilities in place. So they either have them in or out. And I can tell you, if you don't have an enabling environment within a utility, no investor will come, because they are looking at the risk. But there are other WSPs that have done well. I agree with you, but I think nationally as we move this conversation, then we also need the county governments to come on the table and also make clear commitments. And I want to believe that the national government will be pointing out this concern. Water is a devolved water and sanitation service provision is a constitutional function of the county government. As much as we exhibit that passion, we have the duty bearers. Where are they? What are they saying? It is very sad when you go to other counties, you can see magnificent water infrastructure has been put in place. But instead of the non-revenue water going down, it's going up. So it's completely purely a governance issue. Lastly, and I think this is where we need also pressure from the private sector to support us. When I see you, I was looking at issue or impact number 13. Then I realized out of the 91 regulated water utilities, it's only 10 utilities that have a valid tariff. And that basically is the lifeblood of any utility. And I think in terms of negotiating even absorption of loans, I think even Water Fund can assist us as a condition. Because if you are going to repay the loan, then the tariff should be looked at the way NBK suggested, that you also have to look at that tariff of the utility. And because it is also a political tool, you know, the governors are the ones. You can do everything, then they say, no, ongeza bei. Then it stops there and it kills everything. And I remember there's a time WASREB did that to Kericho. They had refused. They had the KFW loan. Then WASREB told them, it's not only Kericho that needs the money. We are taking it elsewhere. I tell you, within 2 weeks, there was a new tariff. So I think that pressure is very important from the private sector, as you are also under the Water Fund, as you are engaging, and the technology, as you are engaging, look at that tariff structure. If it can be renegotiated to include even the repayment you are talking, and I know the regulator is ready to do that. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that very elaborate question. We have kindly give the CEO Kerry the mic.
Thank you, Elkanah. First of all, today I have not talked, so let me welcome everybody who has come to this symposium. Feel welcome and feel very much at home. On this, my question particularly now is directed to CEO WSTF, Bwana Ombai. If you go by the current trends, you've seen that the mainstream banks now are doing a lot of financial innovation gravitating towards funding the water programs. I'm asking if your organization has made a deliberate policy or moves to ensure that we tap this, because this seems to be a good source of funding for the water sector. Because as we've seen, there's a lot of restrictions going by the other forms of models which has been going towards funding the water programs. We've been relying so much on the development partners. We are also relying on GOK, and we know on the scarcity of funding. So what efforts are you making as the prime institution which is given that responsibility to ensure that we tap all this financial innovation going on, to ensure that all our programs are properly funded and we have the benefits going to the consumers? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Director Kerry. I think we have quite a number of questions and remarks and concerns which I could wish the panel to give their reaction and feedback on, ranging from, I'm saying most of them are for you, Mr. Mbai. In terms of especially for funding, the need is there. The fact that most of them are asking about the increase of the funding. You did mention in your presentation about some deadlines. How many of these beneficiaries or potential beneficiaries are aware of the deadlines you are talking about? Engineer Dor, you did mention about corruption. You're the only one person who has mentioned corruption in this symposium. How widespread is it? There's a forum, in fact, where we were challenged at KW. Since so many of these students come from KW, do you teach corruption in KW? But I know we have integrity programs in KW. Maybe you can also touch on that, and your very strong statement, Wameshindwa. I don't think that's very true. And then Safaricom, the innovations, especially in the smart meters, how sustainable, how widespread. Kindly, I'm sure you took the notes. Let's get the mic going around so that we break for tea in the next 10 minutes. Start from Safaricom on the other end, please. The mic will come this way.
Okay, thank you for the question. Smart meters, one of the things you have to realize is the meters have always been there. What is now being made smart is that meters are coming with integrated components. They're coming with a SIM card, they're coming with a battery. And so with all these additional components, then I think that's what we are really trying to see how sustainable it is. We have been doing this work from 2018, and from our experience is that yes, there is quite a rigorous process that is required to identify suitable suppliers of smart meters, because there's been options in the market which have failed. And we have taken that, and we are able to ascertain that the meters that we are working with are able to give us the guarantees, especially around battery, because battery is really the biggest issue with these smart meters. So we have not had much time to test, but we are confident with a few suppliers we have worked with over the period of 3 to 4 years that the technology is sustainable. This is how the market is going with integrated meters. So we are working together with the customers to make sure that the sourcing process, the specifications that go in, what needs to be looked at. For example, in terms of low power network connectivity. There's low power network connectivity options which have proven to be a challenge to adopt, because they require that water service providers are putting networks in place to support those meters. And so together with KEWI, and this is an activity we will pick as an action from here henceforth, is to really help in the guidelines that should be put in place to ensure that the adoption of smart metering is successful and is not, encountering headwinds of things that are not really metering, connectivity and otherwise. But we feel confident with the trials that we are doing, with what we have been able to do with a few water companies on the outcomes and operations. Secondly, I want to mention, and I think there's been discussions around an influx of Chinese meters in the smart metering space, which was unlike with the other older meters. One of the things that has happened in the industry is China has gone ahead of Europe and America in going the smart metering way. And I think it's because Europe adopted the old metering technology and it works for them, and they see no urgency in adopting smart metering. I just think so, but there's been an evident fast movers advantage from the Europeans. So you see a lot of Chinese meters. They're not all bad, but I know there's been some disappointment. So you will find that, yes, a lot of the options in the market are Chinese. A few European options are there, and they're starting to come up. So this is something to look out for. Thank you.
Thank you, Isaac. We are coming to you, Engineer Dor, and maybe just a small addition from my limited experience with the product from some of these countries. It's an issue of specifications, because you can get a very good meter from China, yes, but the issue of the specifications and getting to know which is the right one. Otherwise, even like phones, you can get a phone of a certain specification, but different qualities. Engineer Dor, as you come on board, don't forget about devolution, because that's key in terms of what our CEO asked.
Okay, thank you very much, Bwana Kaburi. And first and foremost, let me withdraw the statement of Wameshindwa. Let me just say they are not able to, though they have the will. Okay, then I want to discuss a little about what CEO WASPA has mentioned, that the increase in the level of non-revenue water from 42% to 47% came about as a result of the devolution or the devolving the function of the water to the counties. As much as that might be right, and also I agree with you that in managing the issue of non-revenue water, actually it's a collective responsibility. And as a country, we honestly need to have a honest discussion on this issue without laying blame games, because you know, the water companies might say, though it was brought back to the county governments, the county government is doing this. The county government also, on the other side, they're saying the water company is doing this. So if we continue with the aspect of the blame game, as we blame each other, the level of non-revenue water is continuing to shoot. It's continuing to go up. So it's high time as a nation, we need to have a honest discussion on the issue of non-revenue water without blaming each other. Because if we continue blame games, then the level will continue to shoot. So it will go up to a point that we maybe will be at 60, 70, and that would be very detrimental for the country. So I'm glad we have the leadership of the ministry here. So, and we've had the sentiments from the CEO WASPA, where he has said that maybe the reduction is a result of the devolution. To me, I don't think that is true, because I don't know what role maybe devolution has played in reducing the non-revenue water, because we know the aspect of the contributors to non-revenue water. We know these things to do with the physical losses, the commercial losses. So if we manage this, because the management of non-revenue water is just a management issue. How are we able to manage the physical losses? How are we able to manage our commercial losses? So it's important that we have just an enabling environment, like is mentioned. So for us to be able to have this, so we really need to have that discussion as a country. Then Engineer, you talked about something to do with the corruption. The issue of corruption in the water sector, this thing is real, and we really have to be alive to this fact. So it cuts across a lot of issues. It basically starts even from the meter reading, how we procure the materials. Because you find kwanza in the procurement, you find that maybe specifications are put for maybe certain types of materials, maybe meters, maybe pipes, but because of the shortcuts or because of the greed that we have in the procurement process, you find that we end up procuring substandard materials, maybe like pipes, which if you put in the system, you find maybe it's a pipe that cannot even be able to sustain the pressure, the pressures within the system. So one thing that we need to do is that it's high time that we even do self-reflection as maybe water service providers, those who are involved in the procurement of the materials for the systems. Then also another issue or corruption issue comes, but I'm glad these days maybe you are going to the issue of maybe the smart metering and all that. Even the meter readers themselves, these things, it just starts from that lowest level. Even the meter readers themselves, sometimes you find they do collusions with maybe the customers. They record lower values than the customer has consumed and all that. The illegal connections which are done in the system, these are basically done by the employees of the water service providers. Because somebody like me, I cannot go to Nairobi Water because I don't know how their system runs. I don't know where their line passes. So I cannot go to Nairobi Water and tap into their line and then maybe take to my house or something. It is the employees, the people who are involved in the network management. They are the ones who knows where this line passing. So if you talk about the issue of illegal connections, you find actually they are done by the employees of the water service providers. So it is high time that we do a self-reflection. We do a self-reflection, and this would be able to help us in reducing the levels of non-revenue water? Thank you.
Thank you, Engineer. They say he or she that sits on a pin will surely rise. We are sitting on a pin. We are working on reducing non-revenue water. It's a war. We were told yesterday it's a war, and this is a war we must win. Karibu sana, CEO Water Fund.
Thanks so much. There are a number of questions which have been raised. I think 4 of them have been directed towards WSTF. I would want to take them. The first one coming from NBK, National Bank of Kenya, regarding the high cost of financing. That was a very good question. The way WSTF has responded to it is by introducing blended financing. I think for those of us who attended the World Water Forum in Dakar last month, this was one of the key takeaways that if we are to improve the sector financing, then we need to approach it through blended financing. Blended financing works this way, that NBK is loaning at 13% to the company, but if WSTF comes with the funding from either government or donors, then that can be used to reduce the cost of financing from 13 to maybe 7%. So that is the approach we have. The second question connected to that, why can't WSTF commit the funding to National Bank? All of us know, being a public institution, we are guided by Public Procurement Act. So there is no way NBK will have a monopoly. However, the funds or the agreements comes between the water company and the financing institution. So we do sensitize all the financing institutions that this facility is there. Let the water companies or the WSPs develop bankable projects. So they will go from one bank to the other. Who is offering the best? We are not in a position to dictate. If you look at our previous programs, unfortunately, Cooperative Bank had the biggest portfolio because they were able to take the risk. The risk they took today has made nearly all the commercial banks to demonstrate to us the level of appetite that they have for this. So, you know, with this, the companies have made the proposals. Talk to the man right behind you there to tell you which is the best company making the best proposal. Then you approach that company for business. Otherwise, it will be really not prudent, or the same matters of integrity that Oduor is talking about will come when we prioritize one bank over the other. But the kind of product and the rates that you are giving will attract the water company to come to you. Secondly, I will jump to the question because it is related to that. Question asked by Director Kewi on what are the deliberate policies, strategies that WSTF has made. Around 6-7 years ago, WSTF, analyzing the environment in which it operates, commissioned a study with the support of the Nature Conservancy to scan the future and how it would look. And it came to our realization that without innovative financing and ways of survival, we would definitely perish. We know the legal environment we are operating has changed. 2, there have been changes in terms of also the Kenya being categorized as lower middle income economy, meaning that the grants that we rely on most of the times are no longer going to come as they used to come. So that is the reason why we are shifting to alliances with commercial banks and other financing institutions or sources domestically to make sure that financing is still available for the water companies. And so we know that when Kodak failed to change with the technology, nowadays none of us is seeing any Kodak shop around the corner to take the photos. So it was very deliberate. With that assessment director, we have come up with a number of our strategies. Our strategy, which is ending now, 2017, 2022, gave much prominence, which I had said in terms of result-based financing, and we introduced a fully fledged department with officers to man it and cooperate with the stakeholders that we needed to make that happen. You are aware, and I'm happy the CEO WASPA has talked to it, the revolving fund facility, which we have introduced. I can say that 3 or 4 of leading commercial banks have approached us for partnership in that with very good terms, and I think that is being undertaken. And so you can see we understand that we need to move from grants. There is a question to my boss, and boss allow me to just shed more light that WSTF financing composed of both the government and development partner. To your surprise, the government is the single most biggest donor, if you will allow me to say, of WSTF. We have 20% since its inception in 2004. The over 30 billion that WSTF has handled has been contributed by the national government. The second runners-up are World Bank at 15%. There is Danida at 15%, followed closely by EU and KfW. So I know the question was very specific to the revolving facility. We have made contacts with the National Treasury through the ministry, and they are very positive responses. All of us here know where our greatest GDP goes for our survival as Kenyans. We know the health programs and the priorities which are there. So we are only hoping that as the government thinks about this as a priority, that the key steps and feedback that we have gotten from the national government, including negotiations with the World Bank to allow the current CLSG funds to be given to WSTF to start up the revolving facility. Because we know money from the World Bank is a loan, and the loan is guaranteed and will be paid by Kenyans, and that is from the government. Only 10 WSPs have valid tariffs. Yes, I talked about compliance in my presentation. The eligibility criteria, one is always very clear that the WSP must be a licensed WSP, not a registered one. So we work with that. I'm aware most of the times when the OBA or AOD loans are being given, the water companies have sought to have their tariffs improved to be able to have the loans repaid. And I want to tell Odur that what CEO WASPA is saying is very valid. The governance is a key issue, and I can demonstrate that when the tariffs need to be changed, it is our colleagues from the other side that sometimes are reluctant to allow the tariffs to be changed. We have 2 cases in some 2 counties in Kenya, which I'm not going to name, where we had to withdraw OBA funds, 2 of them, and from very prominent, I would say, counties that did not benefit from OBA simply because of governance issues. It means changing the MD, interfering with the directors. So it is a real issue. And perhaps if you ask me, the time that we used to finance without the counties, and now how fast were the processes, how efficient were they, and how are the governance. Everything is there for a reason, so perhaps the reflection and the discussion, very mature discussion, needs to take place in terms of how do we move forward to make sure that whatever we have, and we get the total benefit of devolution, as opposed to sometimes, I would say, KEWI being a research institution, that must be a very fertile area for research to find out whether there are plausible indicators that connect the high or the increase in non-revenue water with the current governance structure that we have. So I think those will serve to answer some of the questions which were asked, and I think I rest my case there.
Kindly give them, okay. Kindly, you can wind up for us your parting shot and also your reaction to the concerns.
Thank you, Bwana Kaburi. I think I just want to add some points on what Willie said about broader finance. I'll make a promise after that presentation, with consultations with my colleagues. We have agreed that we are going to, as NBK, to add some subsidies to any WSP that will come for financing for the purposes of reduction of non-revenue water by reducing our processing fees by 1%. At the same time, we have agreed for all those WSPs that will come for financing, we'll get technical assistance for public engagement to advocate on the public on how to take measures on non-revenue water, especially the physical non-revenue water, that at the cost of NBK. The third point, though they seem political but they are real, is that for all those projects of non-revenue water that you are going to undertake as WSPs and you are coming for financing at NBK, we'll be able to facilitate the feasibility or the preliminary studies for the project at our cost. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Just before you step down, I want to really appreciate you. This has been a very, very exciting session. to take a health break of 20 minutes. Kindly, as we leave, we want to ask that you let our guest of honor, Irrigation Secretary, to lead with the KEWI CEO and also the CEO of the partners, so that they go take tea. After they have exited the room, we also exit and we take our tea and come back as soon as possible, possibly in less than 20 minutes. The next, I'm informed there's a new term called non-revenue food. I'm hearing it today for the first time. The hotel is requesting that we also register as we take our tea, so that they are able to account for the food. Kindly register. Some of us have not registered. Then lastly, as we come back, we'll have presentations in the following order. Director KEWI, Doshi, Esri, and we have some students from KEWI also have a presentation, and after that we'll be able to break for lunch. Thank you so much. I didn't introduce myself at the beginning. My name is Matara, Elkana Matara Kaburi, Principal KEWI Kitui Campus. Thank you very much. And now let's appreciate our panelists in kind. Let's appreciate them until the guest of honor is exited the room. So we continually appreciate them until the guest of honor is at the door. Continuously, please. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.